It's time. It is episode 53 of the ATM podcast. Mark Watson, international broadcaster and commentator, Maritn Devlin from the platform. We're talking All Blacks versus France, the Wales versus Penrith. New Zealand rugby is not fit for purpose. VAR if we get time as well. Netball sustainable. Will anyone stop Manchester City? And Israel Adesanya. The absolute fame and fortune attached to this guy who gets his own exclusive interviews on ESPN, something our All Blacks have never managed to do. I want to bring that up as well.
Apologise to me!
Watto, let's start though with the Rugby World Cup, which kicks off on Saturday. News that Jordie Barrett may miss it. Mate, we're down now potentially 4 of our first choice players. That's Lomax, Retallick, Frizzell and Jordie Barrett. And I tell you what, my heart sinks because I look at the replacements of those players and think they are not the same as the guy that isn't there. How much does this weaken us and how much of a worry is it?
We need Shannon Frizzell. I think Shannon Frizzell, out of the guys you mentioned, I think is the biggest concern. I think he's been magnificent this year, probably the best player in the All Blacks this season. And it's amazing, isn't it? For so long, we've waited to see what the fascination is around Shannon Frizzell. You know, we're waiting to sort of see the Jerry Collins come out, and we've never quite seen it. And then, like a lot of sports, suddenly you do have that breakthrough season. He is the big one for me. I think we can probably get away with Sam Whitelock and Scott Barrett at lock. And I think we've got some replacement there. Yeah, look, this All Black team, I keep saying it, I just would have had Jack Goodhue in that midfield mix somewhere. I'm not convinced that Anton Leonard-Brown's going to do the job at second 5'8" if Jordie Barrett's out. Look, I can't see us getting up and beating the French this week. I just don't hope it's not a massacre. I hope that, you know, if we lose narrowly and there's some positives to take out of it. On the other side of it, I guess if we were to beat France in this first game, how much pressure does that then be put on the French by the French public, and can they handle that scrutiny? Can they handle that pressure? We've said this in the past. We've said it about Ireland in the past, and Hansen's come out, you know, the weight of expectation, number one side of the world. The All Blacks have always got that on them. They've always had that on them. So I think that's the one advantage that we do have. But I think I said this last week. I just, when it's all said and done, the quarterfinal's the key game, clearly. I just not sure that we are good enough. But look, it's going to be an incredibly exciting time over the next 4 to 6 weeks. It always is Rugby World Cup. It always is Olympics time. And then again, you throw the Warriors in the mix, and there's a lot to look forward to, and how people around the country are going to set their weekend up or set their mornings up. Martin, and just on that too, and I know you might bring it up, but I just wanted to touch too on the All Blacks going off and going to these sacred grounds where a lot of New Zealand soldiers are buried during World War One. And you brought up the point that no media were invited along, and that all media was put up on the All Blacks social media channels. I'm
starting to feel uncomfortable about this, mate. I really am. Look, I just think these are sideshow promos. I feel icky about it because I kind of wonder what the purpose of what they're trying to do. Is it really deeply to pay respects? And then, the news media is desperate for a story, and out comes an angle of, Tamaiti Williams discovered that his great-great-great-grandfather had been there, which is, it's awfully sad and it's very poignant and everything else. And then the next day it gets forgotten because there's an injury story. Look, I don't know. It's just made for TV pictures for me. And there's something about it that makes me feel really uncomfortable. The somberness of it, the reality of it, the fact that, you get the word war attached to a game of rugby, and then the cliches come out about all the determined men going overseas for their country. Like that. I mean, it's just all a load of waffly, horrible crap, mate. And men and women died. They got gassed. They got burnt alive. They got buried. They got blown to bits. It's got nothing to do with sport. And, every New Zealander that goes to these places, I'm sure, is deeply moved by it. But I just think this is it's a kind of a made-for-sideshow publicity stunt. And I just feel, and I feel even more uncomfortable now that this is only available across the All Blacks' private, personal media channels. And eventually, what this is going to lead to, Mark, and this is where I think the dark hole that we're going down, is this is the very start of what NZR Plus is going to do. Eventually, you will not get anything out of the All Blacks at all unless you subscribe to that channel. That's where this is going. This is the very start of it.
Yeah, and hopefully that's been identified in that review of the board and how just out of touch they are. Look, I agree with you completely on this one. The moment you start commercialising anything to do with war veterans and those that have lost their lives in the war, I think it's a big, big black mark. I think it's absolutely appalling. It's disgraceful. I have no problem, and I'm a big believer in it, that I think every New Zealander at some point should go to these, whether it be to Flanders, whether it be to certain parts of France, whether it be to Gallipoli, and actually just go and take some time and just have a moment to reflect and gain the understanding that a lot of these people were 18, 19 or 20 who didn't even know what they were doing. And as you mentioned, the brutal ways in which they died, in which they sacrificed themselves, arguably for some sort of politician's war. And I think it is a timely reminder. And, I think, look, take the All Blacks there and just say, look, this is, the All Blacks. It's not about you. It's so much bigger than that, and do it for all the right reasons. But when I start hearing about social medias and it's exclusive to new commercial channels, then it actually irks me. I find it very distasteful. In fact, I just find it thoroughly appalling, to be perfectly bloody blunt. And just almost.
Look, it's showtime. It's showtime about something that just look, and the fact that today on We Move, we don't. There's no more mention of it. It is a publicity stunt, and I just find if you're going to do publicity stunts, then please don't drag that into it. Let's move on to the Warriors versus Penrith this Saturday.
Apologise to me!
I'm so looking forward to this, and I'm so relaxed about it, because to me, it's just, this is the fun bit. It really is. If you can't enjoy this as a Warriors fan or enjoy the Warriors season, well, I don't know what to say to you. I can't help you. The Warriors have won 16 games. They're in the top 4. They go away to Penrith. What is it? It doesn't, to me, it's just a game of rugby league that is there to be absolutely enjoyed, is what it is.
Yeah, look, and I think all of us probably don't have a huge expectation on necessarily coming away with the win in Penrith, but there is also that chance that we can come away with the win, and that's the exciting bit about it. And the pressure's on Penrith, isn't it? They're the team. Everybody's talking about Penrith, the team to beat. Would I have preferred Brisbane? Probably. But then you go beyond that. I think this time, for the top 8 this time, I think is just so strong. You've got the team like Roosters, Newcastle. You throw the Melbourne Storm in there, all coming into form at the right time. Everyone's saying Brisbane, Penrith. I think when it's all said and done, I still think we'll see a Melbourne team somewhere in the final. That's just what they do. And I think there is a real opportunity here. I remember 2011 was the last time we made the NRL Grand Final. Was also a Rugby World Cup year. We were hosting that here in New Zealand. Always remember us making that final, and the Rugby World Cup was on. And so wouldn't it be just sort of poignant that a similar thing sort of happens this time around? But look, as we've said every week, it's just great reward, isn't it, for Warriors fans who for so long have just sort of had to sit back and at times probably felt embarrassed, appalled, angry, but have hung tough and have believed, and it's here and it's on our doorstep. And and it's not just about the All Blacks this weekend. And in a funny kind of way, it even puts even more pressure on rugby again. It's just another reminder to rugby, you guys need to get your shit together. You guys need to be better than you are, because it's no longer a country just focused on one team. We're a country now who are focused on so many sports, and rugby league sits right up there alongside, ahead of rugby at a domestic level, certainly. And so, we're going to get this double whammy. Let's just hope that we don't wake up Sunday morning and that we've lost both games. Wouldn't it be great if we woke up Sunday morning and we won both games? But I think the New Zealand public would be even more delighted if we woke up and won just one game, but it was the Warriors that had that win.
Isn't that a crazy thing? Who do you want to win more this particular weekend? I think if it is this particular weekend, probably most fans would actually vote Warriors. Although then again, it is the All Blacks we're talking about here. However, it's a weird game in that if we lose this game, it doesn't mean the World Cup is over. That quarterfinal looming so much more important.
Apologise to me!
Talking Premier League now, is anyone going to stop Man City? I watched them over the weekend stroll to a win over Fulham, and it was 5-1. They could have won 25-1. The VAR is just an absolute shambles at the moment. And look, the TMO is, we see the bunker getting it wrong every week. Mark, it just comes back now, doesn't it, that we have once again overcomplicated a situation where you talk about it and you talk about it well. You talk about human beings are flawed. We are flawed creatures. We all make mistakes. Players make mistakes. Referees make mistakes. I watched a VAR moment between Fulham and Man City, which was so clear to everyone watching, commentators, everybody, apart from the referee and the VAR, who actually ruled a goal that was blatantly offside and interfering with play, ruled it as a goal because they're too fraidy cat to actually interfere, make decisions, make a wrong decision, and then face the consequences of. Is it about time? And it'll never happen. But look, let those who are employed to do this do it. Let the referee decide, and let us as the public accept the fact that if there are mistakes made, that's all they are. Mistakes are made. Do we need to go back to that? Because it's never going to happen now, isn't it? But all of these games are just so goddamn stop and start, and you got to, you can't even celebrate a goal these days. Garnacho scored yesterday against Arsenal. I sat there watching it, and I didn't even move because I just said I got to wait for 5 minutes to see whether it was a goal or not, and in the end, it's not a goal. It's just they're sucking the fun out of our sports.
You're right. I mean, it is flaws. Players have good games, referees have good games, referees have bad games, players have bad games, managers, coaches. Clearly, there are absolute howlers where maybe there does need to be some genuine, consequences for really, really poor decisions. But look, if it's like in rugby when you slow it down. The game's not played in slow motion. You hear that a lot. To me, if it looks like a try, it is a try. And let's just move on. Let's get on with it. I mean, yeah, the VAR but everybody now's got to have a say, don't they? I think rugby, that test match against South Africa just showed where rugby's going for the, with the All Blacks South Africa, just to the point where it was just absolutely appalling. The assistant referees, they're referees in their own right. They should just be there ruling on forward passes and
foul play,
players being offside, but because they're referees, that's just the natural intuition to start looking at the breakdowns and getting involved in areas that should just be left to the referee in the middle of the park. And I thought with the TMOs, you came back just one phase or two phases prior to a try being scored. Anything prior to that, you couldn't rule on. That seems to have changed now. I watched the Manchester United Arsenal game. You're talking about a split second from Manchester United winning that game to ultimately ending up going on and losing it, of the smallest of margins. It's somehow got to be simplified, but it's right. Anytime you come in to try and solve a solution, you just end up creating problems elsewhere. They then become an issue. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but you can't also get to a game and go, God, we've got 11 minutes of extra time here. You may as well be at the 80-minute mark. If you think you've got a game wrapped up at 91, 92 minutes, forget it. There's still another 10 minutes of play. And then even within that, and they talk about player welfare, they talk about the length and duration of the season, and they just, for some reason they think this is a good thing. I have no problem with, say, 3 minutes of injury time, but 11 minutes of injury time, 10 minutes of injury time. A game's no longer 90 minutes. A game's now 100 minutes, and just get used to it, Martin. And it's not a good thing. Just going back to Manchester City, look, Manchester City are going to win the English Premier League. They could end up doing what Arsenal potentially did, 10, 15 years ago, and pretty much go through the season unbeaten. I think genuinely UEFA or the English Premier League or FIFA need to somehow do something about this. It's just becoming an arms race. Manchester City, would I be saying the same thing if it was Liverpool? I don't know. But Manchester City are basically funded by an entire country. There is no limit to their resources. There's no limit to their budget. There's a danger here. The Great English Premier League could end up just being like the Scottish Premier League, where every year, it's going to be one or two teams, and that's it. And nobody else has got a chance.
That's exactly where it's sitting.
And it's not a good thing for football.
It's not.
Apologise to me!
Not fit for purpose. And just a couple of minutes on this, because this, of course, report came out last week. It's not something that any of us who follow rugby were shocked or surprised by at all. It's exactly what everyone has been saying for the last decade. I'm just amazed now at the mire that New Zealand rugby finds itself in. The Silver Lake deal was meant to solve everything, but we're more broke now than we've ever been after getting a $200 million injection from them. We see over the weekend that no one turns up to the domestic product. This is meant to be a professional sport. It pays players. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, apparently $1 million. It pays other players, TJ Perenara, hundreds of thousands of dollars to play for the Hurricanes. I mean, I'm sitting there going, you're looking at this going, you can't sustain this. No one is coming into the supermarket to buy your stuff. No one is taking anything off the shelves, and you are overpaying these players. If you're not playing for the All Blacks, how the hell can you be earning any money in New Zealand rugby? I just don't get it. The women's game, again, the Black Ferns, they're flying business class all over the world and they're treated like rock stars and everything. They're not even playing these competitions. No one's there watching. It's just, it is just the worst business model, I think, of any sport I have ever seen. They've only got themselves to blame. It's the administrators who put themselves in this position, and they're the ones that are going to have to get out. But I tell you who won't actually pay at the end of the day. It's those guys. Everyone else is to blame. We're to blame. The public's to blame. The media's to blame. The competition's to blame. Domestic rugby's to blame. Club rugby's to blame. Everyone's to blame apart from the people that actually run the game.
Yeah, Martin, but look, I've been saying this, and you know me, and we've been saying it since we've been doing this show, but I've been saying this for 8 or 9 years that New Zealand rugby was a house of cards. I remember a whole lot of young journalists in the newsroom at Radio Sport and stuff all having a crack at me, telling me I didn't know what I was talking about, and I'm just a doom and gloom merchant. You could see the writing on the wall. This is not something that the responsibility just falls on this current administration. This goes right back to the Steve Chu. This goes right back to those guys who just suddenly, who corporatised New Zealand rugby. As we said, everything sort of came about the All Blacks, and it's still about the All Blacks. I mean, can you imagine the damage that if we were to be knocked out in the quarterfinals of this Rugby World Cup, because we have then absolutely nothing left. We are at the bare base. The All Black brand is the All Black brand which is selling is absolutely, completely and utterly damaged.
Compromised.
Great report that comes out and says, look, we need a complete overhaul. The current board is out of touch with New Zealand rugby. Well, based on that, and you've only got to read too, that leadership's not great. I can't see Mark Robinson surviving a year. I think he'll resign. I think a new board will come in. I think he will go. I don't think there's any room for this guy. He's probably a really nice bloke. He was a hell of a rugby player, but he's not an administrator. He's not a leader. He's not tough enough. He's not hard enough. And you've got to actually go back to the people, and that's where it's all got to start. It's actually got to come back to the fan. And I say it's something that English Premier League do well. It's something that the NRL do well. It's something that the Warriors are doing really, really well at the moment. But look, just the NPC too. Look, I don't think it's room there to be a professional competition. I think it does need to be more of an amateur-based comp. I think it is a stepping stone. If you are going to continue down the path of Super Rugby, I mean, we've said we'd like to see that to be the premier product. But if it's not, then, we've got to be fiscally more responsible. As much as we want equity, the Black Ferns, I'm sorry, you're not the All Blacks. You'll never be the All Blacks. Yes, you created some hype around the World Cup through a media who gave you the absolute greatest promotion in the world because of the political environment and this sort of women's right movement that goes on. But you're club athletes at best. You deserve, you just fly economy. I mean, even have to pay your own airfares to go. I mean, I look at the New Zealand women's water polo team ranked, 9th in the world in Olympic sport, and they basically have to self-fund to go places. And, they find a way and they get there. But also, too, you see nobody tuning up to the grounds. We've spoken about this. We can blame New Zealand rugby for the state of the NPC, but it is in a terrible state. But the unions now have to take responsibility. Auckland should not be playing at Eden Park. Canterbury did a great thing in taking it to Rangiora.
Yes, they did.
Saw the crowds turn up. Now, would the crowds turn up if it was a game at Rangiora every week? It'd probably dissipate after a while. Probably novelty would go. But so you take it somewhere else. You just end up having one set home ground, but you take it around, but you get the fans re-engaged, and that's where it's got to start. We've got to go back to the basis and get the fans involved. Allow fans a close-up personal look at these, and I think that's where it's all got to go. But has the horse bolted, Martin? We've said this every week. We've been saying this for a long time, and finally, and actually formalised what we've been saying and what so many New Zealand rugby players or so many rugby fans around the country have been thinking for a long time, that it's a hell of a mess. There needs to be a much higher level of accountability, decorporatise this damn thing, make it about the fans. And, if the players have some expectation around what they should get paid, then maybe in the short term, or maybe the solution is that, hey, look, you do go overseas and apply your trade, and the All Black jersey no longer means that much to you because money's more important. Well, good luck to you, but yeah, something's got to give, mate. But the whole model is just an absolute disaster.
Devlin,
Have you seen my wiener?
the platform.